So this is my 60th, 50th, 40th, 60th. Okay, this is my 60th video, and I'm going to start it with reading one of my translations. This translation is not grammatically correct at some places, but I don't feel like spending more time on finding the right sentence, the new grammatically correct rhymes. So it will stay this way for some time. And this is the translation of the Russian song by the band Ногу свело, which is called Колыбельная. Or by the first line of this song, стоит на кухне недопит горячий шоколад. Let's go. My little hero is asleep, he sees the colored dream, thus he devised the way to skip the milk awaiting him. He dreams the things he always does, the endless magic land, the woods, the mountains, the stars, the grass, the ice, the sand. The fairy will approach the room, not leaving any trails. Then it will cast the portal to the world of fairy tales. The king foretold that you'd appear, will take you to the prom. The Captain Hook will let you steer his old ship through the storm. Together you'll dig out the gold inside the pirate's cave, then you'll destroy the cage that holds the princess to be saved. First, she'll present you with a dance which starts the royal ball, and then you'll get the lucky chance to kiss her at the hall. Soon all the guests will run outside to watch the fireworks. The laughs and yells will fill the night up to the pine trees' tops. You and the princess will depart to walk around the lakes where you'll exchange each other's hearts at the first touch of day. With no exceptions, dreams come true, and many years ago I was exactly just like you, my fast asleep hero. I always dreamed to reach the stars and fly from east to west. I loved my dad and my grandpa. My mother was the best. But I grew up enough at last, and at that very time, the princess turned into the dust. The fairy also died. Okay. It was one of the songs that I really liked, and I listened to it from time to time. And when I had this couple of weeks or about a month of inspiration, I remembered about this song. I found it and I translated it quite close to the text. I like the fantasy story behind the song, and I like the rhythm, the rhyme of this song. So maybe in the future I can take the form of this song and put something fantasy-like that will be created by me. Because right now I feel like I translated all the songs, all the poems that I liked, and these poems, these songs were really easy to translate for me. And when I try to find something new to translate, because, well, I can't really get the ideas to create my own poems, and I don't need to, because this translation is my fun time. I do it for fun, so I need this I don't know, foundation, the source materials that I can use to get the inspiration from them, and to make the artistic translations, which means I can be inspired but only one line in the verse, and then create my whole verse based on this line. Yeah. Well, right now I'm in the state that I don't want to translate anything, and nothing goes into my mind. Maybe it's because I decided to become familiar with some new vocabulary from the specific topics. I think a week ago I worked on the law topic. I got these textbooks about law, and I translated all the words, and they were very unfamiliar for me because I never really listened to or read any law texts, law vocabulary. Loyal, maybe not loyal. I'm not sure about loyal. Well, so right now I at least familiar with some particular words from these topics: jury and attorney, defendant and plaintiff, sue and suit, to sue and suit, and other stuff. I can't use it anywhere in my, let's say, English or in my talks because, well, I didn't learn it by heart. I just get familiar with it. I can understand it listening to it. I can read it aloud with the right pronunciation, and I can understand the meaning behind these words in this context. So that's a big progress for me, but it took a lot of energy from me. I make lots of efforts to translate this stuff. Then I took the cooking book about the kitchen, different types of the utensils, like spoon, the knife, then different appliances, microwave, oven, stove, and it was much easier for me because some of the stuff I tried to learn when I decided to get the vocabulary for my cooking experience, like what I do in the kitchen while I cook. And the next book that I took, and it was just like for expanding my vision of the world, and this was about Air Force. I recalled that in 20s I watched a lot of action movies. Well, actually, lots of action movies were created in 2000s. Yeah, where and these movies involved something from the American Army, like the jets. I think the fighters, is the planes. Different different vocabulary. So when I just listened to this audio and watched with my eyes the texts behind these audios, I felt quite familiar. I felt that I was quite familiar with most of this vocabulary, because at least in Russian I knew this vocabulary when they named it in American movies translated into Russian. So it was quite an interesting experience. It's like in Russian I know most of these terms, and it won't be too easy for me to get the English equivalents. But it takes really lots of time, lots of efforts, because this is really new material for me. So somehow the inspiration behind the creation of movies, it went away for some time, but maybe in the future I will return to it. Maybe I will find some interesting text that I will start translating, or maybe I will use the form of the rhyme just to create something for me, using these words that I know. Okay, this is about the rhymes and the English vocabulary that I learn right now. So it looks like I try to read aloud the texts, say from this law textbooks, listen to the audio behind the cooking, behind the air forces. I do and I have no time to and desire to do anything else. So it's kind of difficult for me to find any topic to discuss just from scratch. Well, I watched Deadpool and Wolverine, and that's a great movie. I like it very much. I rewatch the best moments, and it's like I rewatch half of the movie, because with the Thor Ragnarok I can rewatch only 2 or 3 moments that I really like. Yeah, but with Deadpool and Wolverine, I rewatch almost half of the movie, and that's really cool. Well, maybe I can recall just anything and then go with it. For example, Ruum. I encountered this by someone Podgers. I encountered this particular science fiction short story, in the collection of short stories. One of two, or продается планета, which is the planet is being sold, or крылья ночи, the wings of the night. And as I learned recently, this particular story was called A Pursuit in this translation. But I had this strange book made in 1993, I think. It contained three stories: the Haunt of the Baskervilles, The Death World by Harry Harrison, and this short story called Ruum. And I think that when I read this story for the first time, I felt, in this particular book, I felt like I read the story somewhere before, but I couldn't remember, and then I just liked the story, and later, yeah, this is quite a unique story, and it stayed with me through all my life since the first time I read it. Yeah, and right now I understand why I had this feeling of reading it somewhere, but I couldn't find it because it was not called Ruum, as it was called in this collection of Baskerville Hound and Death World, and which is the original name of the story, but in this collection of the stories, it was called just The Pursuit. So anyway, the story is quite wonderful. On some spaceship, the captain and his let's say lieutenants discuss that they forgot some mechanism, some device called Ruum, some machine called Ruum, somewhere on the third planet in the what? On the third planet in the system, in the planet system that rotated around some star that they called by its code number, like 056A something. Yeah. So they decided to leave this Ruum thing there for the time being, and took it on board after they will return from the mission, but somewhere at the asteroids belt, the asteroids belt, if this is the right translation from the Russian. So the spaceship was destroyed, and it was like several million years ago. And then the two guys in the nowadays America of 1960s or 70s, when this particular story was written, these two guys go travel to Alaska because they wanted to dig to find and dig the gold there. Anyway, one of the guys stayed in the area for the time being, and the other guy maybe he took the helicopter and moved somewhere to some town, because they needed some environment, some tools to continue their journey. And the first guy, he just needed to stay for a couple of days, maybe 3 days, in the area, somewhere in the opening, in the clearing, surrounded by the woods, and he could explore the area around, but he needed to wait for his companion. So he was alone. He explored the woods, the territory, maybe to the north of his of the place where he stayed, and he discovered a very interesting thing, like different animals, yeah, were put in a row, in a line, like, and this were very strange animals. The first ones were like dinosaurs, then some other creatures followed them. All the animals were like dead, or maybe in some state of sleep. Yeah. So the dinosaurs were followed by some unknown animals from the maybe later periods, and then in the end of this row there were other more familiar types of animals, like bears, maybe deers, wolves, different types, but this guy noticed that they all were strangely of the same of the same size, kind of, with some variations, but they were of some average size. And when he walked along this row to the end of this line, he saw that some like machine moved out of the nearest forest. I don't remember the details. Maybe this machine held some other animal in its like arms. Yeah. Maybe it was empty-handed. Anyway, this machine noticed the guy, and it started to pursue him. That's why the first Russian translation was called The Pursuit. Again, I don't remember the details, but somehow the guy understood that the machine was not friendly. It wanted to kill him somehow. Maybe not, but he didn't want to check his theory. Yeah. So he started to run away, and this thing followed him. This thing was like from my memory about the story, I can recall that well, it was like a huge drop of mercury, because it was metallic and it reflected the light, and it has no specific shape. It was like when you blow on the drop of the mercury and it moves on the surface, keeping this abstract shape, but you can't really explain it. And this machine could put out of, or could take out of its body different types of arms, like, I don't know, like maybe metal things that ended with different tools, like chainsaw, knives, different stuff, but without any guns to fire. Yeah. So this guy ran away from this thing. At some point, he managed to run over the cliff and then push down the huge boulder on this machine. But it didn't do anything to this machine, and the machine just moved forward. At some point, a huge bear got out of the forest, and it took this machine into his forward front paws and claws, and it tried to eat this machine, but the machine just produced one arm with some razor, and it cut the throat of the bear and continued to pursue this guy. And it was like he covered lots of kilometers while running from this machine, and he didn't sleep for 2 days because the machine always followed him, and he could not run away from this machine so that he could go to sleep, so that he could get any sleep. I don't remember, maybe when he tried to get on the tree, the machine just produced the chainsaw or just the saw and cut down this or saw down this tree, the trunk of this tree. So in the end, when this guy had no strength to continue this race, he could not run away any further, he just collapsed on the ground. And then when this machine approached him, this machine produced some types of arms, and it kind of took him into his arms. Yeah. And then it just put him back on the ground and moved somewhere on its own business. And then this guy, he lost his consciousness, and then he regained his consciousness on the board of the helicopter, which was driven by his friend. His friend finally returned from the nearest town in the helicopter. Somehow he find this guy in this snowy, barren Alaska territory, and he put him on board of his helicopter. And he just said that this guy who was pursued all the whole 2 days, he just lost about maybe 10 kilograms. Yeah, that's all the story. And the idea behind this story, that the really original idea created by this Podgers guy, that several million years ago, these guys from the some super civilization with super technologies, they left this machine called Ruum on the planet in the territory of Alaska, and millions of years later, when the humankind appeared on Earth, and it was Earth, this Ruum continued to walk in this short region. I think maybe this captain and his lieutenant, they discussed what was the perimeter of processing for the Ruum. It was about several kilometers, so that's why this machine never moved south to any people, and it was just operating in this area the area was like isolated from any humans. That's why no one ever discovered this stuff except for this particular guy. And the idea was, and the hint about the secret behind the algorithm that was programmed inside this room, was that all the animals collected in this row, they were of the same size, which means they were of the same mass plus minus several kilos. That's why Ruum the Ruum tried to collect his new item in the form of this particular guy, but when this guy ran from the room for 2 days without sleep, without eating anything, he lost his 10 kilos, and when Ruum finally got him, the item was too light for his collection to add it to the end of this collection. That's why Ruum just left the guy on the spot and returned back to his territory to search for any new collections. Quite an interesting story, quite original story. I liked it from the first sight, from the first moment I read it. And yeah, that's really original. And another interesting story that I read some time ago, it was called Mariana. It was written in 1960s. It's about virtual reality. It's quite strange. Well, the ending is quite clear, but it's kind of strange. Why she? What was the choice? She could accept her illness and continue to work with the doctor, but somehow she was afraid to involve the doctor, or she went to the ultimate ending, and maybe this ending was her death. But why they created this virtual therapy, like fulfilling her wishes, that led to her death. I can't understand really this small thing, but I like it anyway, and I even wrote some original poem that had the plot, the original poem that retold the plot of this particular science fiction story. I wrote it just just for fun, without trying to do a lot of grammar corrections. So it's not grammar correctly, but the basic foundation is made, and if I want to remake this into something more grammatically correct, I can do, because I have the basic material. The same way I have the basic material for translating from the Russian stories, from the Russian poems. Anyway, when I wrote this poem, I just I never read it, but now I'm going to read it for the first time. So let's go. This story retells the science fiction story called Mariana in the form of the rhyme. Let's go. She occupied a nice big house, together with her cat and spouse. Her house was totally high-tech, a lot of switches, buttons, taps. Her spouse went to his work each day. She stayed at home, ate, slept, and played. She played with robots and her cat, with panels on this wall and that. The cover fell off the pane side, and she saw several buttons inside. She was uncertain which to press. She put the cover back in place. When her spouse was home in the evening, she told him all about her thinking. He said the pines outside were fake, the images of radio waves. And when he went to work again, she turned the pines off with a pane. That evening he was very mad and almost killed her with his hands. She had the time to press the switch that made her husband disappear. Okay. Then she removed the house from sight. She stood alone under the sky. The night was cold and full of stars as far as she could move her eyes. She turned the stars off with the pane. There was no stars, no light, no shade. Within the dark, she hoped to wait, but with no stars, no sun, no day. Then the surroundings blinked and died. She was in hospital tonight. The pain suggested her two choices: to stop her session and see the doctor, then to accept that she was ill and start the treatment and take pills, or to continue with the illusion until the logical conclusion. She didn't want to see the doc and listen to his clever talk, so she again picked up the pen. It had the button with her name. She pressed the switch without the fear, and right away she disappeared. Wow. When I reread this story, it sounds even more cool when I wrote it. And I had some interesting moments with this poem that came to my mind just like the insights, without I can't even think about how right now how could I create this particular small lines. It's like Steve Wozniak explained told his impression about the first operation system that he wrote in assembler for the Apple First many years ago, and he said that it was like the insight from the heaven, and later he could not possibly reproduce this kind of code that he was able to create and to make Apple the first operational. Anyway, this I think that this story retells the idea behind the story Mariana quite well. The story starts with a woman who lived in some big house, and her, as I told in this particular poem, she had a husband, and he worked he drove to his work every morning, and he returned back, and she just stayed in the house. She waited for him. She was like the classical housewife from the 1960s, when the woman didn't work, but she had no children, and she had the robots that helped her to with her housework. So she had lots of time for herself, but I don't think that she read a lot or she watched television or something, and it seems like she had no neighbors around, but there were the pine trees somewhere at the horizon, and the road lay near these pine trees, and her husband drove along this road to his work and from his work every day. And because this Mariana woman was very bored in her house, she just explored it different areas of the house, or maybe she had this panel with the buttons. She could press different buttons and control maybe the light in the house, the robots, other stuff. But the panel or the pane, which is the synonym, and I used this for the rhythm of this story. The panel has some free space from one side, and Mariana wondered why they didn't put more buttons onto this space, because they could fit lots of additional buttons. And at some point, the cover of this side of the pane just fell off, and she saw a button. I think the first button was named the tree. Was made the tree. Yeah. She was afraid of her discovery, and she just put the cover back. And then, when her husband returned from the work that evening, she discussed with him that she found this particular panel with the button. And her husband explained to her that the pines were not real, that they were the images, like holograms, that were produced by the radio waves, by the signals that were sent from somewhere far away. And I think she hated the pine trees. Maybe he was alright with it. So when he went to work next day, she just opened the cover and pressed the button trees, and the trees disappeared. They I don't know, they became fuzzy, became transparent, and then they disappeared, like the signal on the screen of the television disappears, and then moves into one dot in the center of the screen, and then this dot disappears itself. The same way the trees moved into this one dot somewhere in the middle of the heights, and this dot disappeared. when her husband returned back from and she was afraid that her husband would be angry with her, so she wanted to to press this button again and return back the trees. But when she took the pen again, there was no this button named trees. There was the button named husband, or whatever was his name, James or something. She was afraid. She covered the pain back. When her husband returned from work, he was angry. He started to something approach her. Again, she was afraid this time of his actions. She take the pen and pressed the button, and he disappeared itself. So he was an illusion as well. And then this button, or maybe this worked like the button tree remained, but it was untouchable now. It was stuck. And then the second button appeared next to it with the name James, for example. And when she pressed this button, it became unpressable as well. And the next button appeared next to it. So the third button was called the house. She pressed it as well, and the whole house disappeared. So she stayed on the barren plain area that was the foundation for this house, without trees, without anything to the horizon. And it was night, and only the stars shone above her. And of course, the fourth button appeared. It was called the stars. She pressed it, and the stars disappeared in the sky. So she stayed in the dark, under the dark sky. She waited, and it was cold. She waited for the sun to appear, because the sunset should be soon. But then she remembered that the sun was the star as well, and it meant that when she switched off the stars, she switched off the sun as well, and the day would never come. But she noticed, it was the fourth button, and then she noticed the fifth button called the doctor, and this button didn't work from the beginning. Maybe this switch or something was not in the on state from the beginning, so she switched it on, and the reality changed, and she found herself in the hospital room. Maybe she sat on the bed, and some voice from the dynamics said that if she came here, that means that she wanted to take the treatment. She decided to accept that she was ill. She had some problems, mental problems, and that the doctor would come soon, and they would start her treatment. Or if she didn't want to see the doctor, she could press the button, switch the doctor off, and continue her they called it somehow like therapy of the therapy by fulfilling all her wishes. So somehow she felt fear. She didn't want to see the doctor, so she pressed the button with the doctor name, and the hospital disappeared, and she returned back to that place under the starless sky in the dark, in the cold dark. And then she saw the last button that appeared on the pane next to the button doctor that was like unusable right now, and the button was named Mariana, and it was the ultimate step in her therapy by fulfilling all her wishes. And she pressed this button, and with this the story finishes. Quite an interesting story. It's like something about the Matrix, but again, I'm not sure what was the meaning of this ultimate therapy. Where was her real body? If her real body was in the hospital, lying on that bed, then all this around her, the stars, the house, the pine trees that she switched off, all the stuff was fake, and it was the illusion in her head. So maybe in this particular therapy, she herself was the illusion in her head, and when she switched off herself, she erased herself from her consciousness, so he would just die in the real life, lying on the hospital bed. Maybe this is the right interpretation of this second choice that she made. But if she chose the doctor, they could resolve some of her problems, and she could start living in the real world, knowing, or maybe trying to fight, to struggle against her mental problems. Not again. Anyway, this was the story behind the Mariana story, and behind this poem that I wrote. Well, it's not so bad. The best thing is that this poem is original. It's based on some story in prose, and I created it. I changed it into the poem. So the last poem that I want to read for today, and it's completely original story that I created from my head. Let's go. There was a village in the woods, and all the villages wore hoods. They had a lot of colored hoods to indicate the current moods. So when the woods were poor of prey, they wore the hoods of color gray. When they were all upset and sad, the hoods of blue went on their heads. Sometimes the villagers felt mean. On these events, the hoods were green. When they were angry, they were red, because the blood rushed to their heads. When they were happy and had fun, the yellow colors meant the sun. When they were tired beyond dead, they put the black hoods on instead. When they agreed to meditate, the clean white hoods helped them to pray. when they were in the mood to play, they chose the orange for the day. It's quite an interesting story because it's grammatically correct, because I tried to create the original line, which is the grammatically correct. It's not like I tried to retell some particular story with the words that I have. So I have more than 50 minutes of talking for today, and this is the end for the today's 60th video. Bye.